Remember, for questions about logically completing the text, we're probably going to need to bring a little something into the passage, but the lines are supposed to do most of the work. So let's take a look. One theory behind human bipedalism speculates that it originated in a mostly ground-based ancestor that practiced four-legged knuckle walking like chimpanzees and gorillas do today, and eventually evolved into moving upright on two legs. But recently, researchers observed orangutans, another relative of humans, standing on two legs on tree branches and using their arms for balance while they reached for fruits. So in hindsight, I kind of understand the contrast here. There's definitely a contrast. The butt gives it away. But they're talking about trees versus the ground, right? So why we thought it was the ground ancestors, maybe it's the tree ancestors. So my guess for what's going to go in this blank is something like these observations may suggest that bipedalism, good for trees, right? The tree, if you're in the trees, not good for the trees, but good for being in the trees. All right, so let's see. Choice A, bipedalism evolved because it was advantageous to a tree-dwelling ancestor of humans. That, I mean, it's not a coincidence. That's basically what I just said. That's probably right, but I should make sure. Choice B, bipedalism must have evolved simultaneously with knuckle walking and tree climbing. So even without the passage here, I'd be skeptical of this for two reasons. Number one, the word must is an extremely strong choice, strong word. It suggests the idea of necessity, and that is very, very rare in science. We don't have certainty, we don't have necessity, we have evidence, we have suggestion, we have more support for something, but we rarely have complete proof, and so must is just a dangerous word regardless. This is also talking about time, and we don't really like that here. I mean, they're not talking about time in the passage, so why is a choice introducing it? So this is getting too specific. C, moving between the ground and the trees would have been difficult without bipedalism. So this seems to check a lot of boxes, right? We're talking about the ground, we're talking about the trees, that's what the passage is talking about. The problem word for me is between, because we're in the passage separating these two ideas. The ground monkeys are over here, the orangutan, the tree monkeys are over here. We're not mixing the two. Choice C is mixing them, and it's saying they're moving between these places, but the passage is telling us that these are two different theories because there's two different types of ancestors. So this is blending things in a way that we don't have any evidence for. Choice D, a knuckle-walking human ancestor could have easily moved bipedally in trees. Again, this is kind of blending it. It's a little bit harder to see the blending, but knuckle-walking is code for the ground, and then the trees are the trees. So why is the ground thing going into the trees? If it's knuckle walking, then it's not bipedal, right? That was the difference, is they started walking on their knuckles, and then eventually they were walking on their feet and being bipedal. So this is blending things. I don't know. Notice, okay, yes, I had a good guess for what the answer was going to be, but I don't think you needed that. Even just without much thought here, choice A is the weakest answer, okay? And that's good. We want weak answers because we don't want answers that go too far, that add more than the bare minimum we need to come up with our conclusion. So B and C and D, they're all taking an extra step. They're connecting the ground to the trees, to the bipedalism, but they're all doing it in ways that are too specific and are making too many assumptions. Whereas A is very vague, right? It evolved because it was advantageous. Why was it advantageous? Doesn't say. And that's good. We don't want to speculate. Now, the passage kind of suggests it helps you reach for fruit, but the choice then is good because it says less than the passage. Pretty much always on these SATs, wrong answers are wrong because they say more than the passage. Right answers tend to be right because they say either exactly what the passage says or they stop short. They're less than what the passage says. So that's why I'm always on about strong choices, strong words, specific choices. We want to avoid going too far. And so if ever you're between two choices, pick the weaker option, the thing that says less, that doesn't quite maybe get to as much information as you'd like. We don't want to come up with assumptions and speculations that are not justified by the lines, and that's why strong answers are wrong.